What happens when Hollywood's most guarded icon walks onto a daytime stage built for comfort, smiles, and polite applause, and suddenly finds himself cornered by a question sharp enough to draw blood? What happens when silence becomes louder than applause, and a single reply turns the air electric? Before we dive in, subscribe to The Truth Narrator, hit like, and comment right now. Because stories like this don't just unfold, they detonate. The studio lights hum like a warning. The audience settles, a low ripple of anticipation moving through the seats as Brad Pitt steps onto the set of The View. He's calm on the surface, the practiced ease of a man who's lived under cameras for decades. A tailored jacket, a neutral smile, eyes that scan the room without lingering too long. He nods to Whoopi, exchanges pleasantries with Joy, a courteous hello to Sunny Hostin. Polite, professional, controlled. The kind of entrance that suggests this will be another soft conversation, another carefully edited hour of charm and reflection. But the room is already tense in a way no one names. You can feel it in the pauses between words, in the way the applause ends a beat too quickly. Brad takes his seat, crosses one ankle over the other, folds his hands. He's here to talk about a project, about craft, about growth. That's the script. That's always the script. Sunny leans forward first. Her posture is confident, her tone warm but precise, like a blade wrapped in velvet. Brad, she begins, smiling for the camera, you've spoken a lot about accountability and personal growth. But there are people who feel those words don't always match the past. How do you respond to critics who say? The sentence trails off, not because she's unsure, but because she knows exactly what she's doing. The audience shifts. A few murmurs ripple through the rows. Brad's smile tightens, just slightly, like a muscle bracing for impact. He waits. That's the first thing people notice. He doesn't rush to fill the silence. He breathes in, slow and measured, eyes flicking briefly toward the floor, then back up. Inside, something stirs. Years of headlines. Courtrooms without cameras. Statements written by lawyers and filtered through publicists. He came prepared to talk about art. He did not come prepared to be tried. Sunny continues, voice steady. Do you think true accountability requires more than reflection? More than words? The question lands. Hard. The applause sign stays dark. No one claps. No one laughs. The room goes quiet in a way that feels deliberate, like everyone is holding their breath to see which way this will go. Brad nods once, slowly. I think, he says, choosing each word like it might shatter if dropped, that accountability isn't a performance. Sunny's eyebrows lift a fraction. But you're on a public platform, she replies. Isn't this where accountability happens? There it is. The line between conversation and confrontation blurs. Brad uncrosses his ankles, sits forward now, forearms resting on his thighs. The shift is subtle, but it changes everything. He's no longer reclining in comfort. He's engaged. Accountability, he says, voice calm but firmer, happens in private first. With the people you've hurt. Not as sound bites. A low murmur passes through the audience. Whoopi glances from Sunny to Brad, sensing the temperature rise. Joy presses her lips together, watching closely. The camera cuts to a wide shot, catching the stillness like a held note. Sunny doesn't retreat. But when your life has been public, she counters, the impact is public. People feel owed clarity. Brad's jaw tightens. For a moment, the easy charm everyone expects flickers and disappears. No one, he says, eyes locking on Sunny's, is owed someone else's healing. The words hang there. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Real. A woman in the front row gasps softly. Someone else nods. Someone shakes their head. The audience is split, and they know it. Sunny tilts her head, measuring him. So you're saying the public should accept silence? I'm saying, Brad replies, voice rising just a notch, that silence can be respect. And pushing someone to relive the worst moments of their life for an audience, he stops himself. Breathes. That's not justice. That's spectacle. The room goes colder. Even the lights feel harsher now. Brad feels it too, the old instinct to retreat, to smooth things over. But something in him refuses. Not today. Sunny leans back, folds her hands. With respect, she says, some would argue that refusing to answer is a privilege. Brad doesn't blink. And some would argue, he fires back, that demanding answers you're not entitled to is power. Silence slams into the studio. No applause. No laughter. Just the faint hum of the lights and the distant sound of traffic outside, bleeding through the walls like a reminder that the world is watching. Brad's heart is pounding now. He can feel it in his ears, in the tightness of his chest. He didn't come here to fight, but he won't be cornered either. Not anymore. He straightens, shoulders back, voice steady again. I've made mistakes, he says, softer now. I've owned them where it matters. Growth isn't loud. It's lived. Sunny studies him, her expression unreadable. For a split second, it looks like she might push further. The audience leans in collectively, waiting for the next strike, the next defense. The tension is so thick it feels like you could reach out and tear it in half. Whoopi finally clears her throat. All right, she says gently. Let's take a breath. But the moment has already changed the room. Whatever came next would not erase what just happened. Lines were drawn. Words were said that couldn't be taken back. Brad exhales, a long, controlled release. Inside, he knows this isn't over. Not here. Not once the camera's cut. This exchange will echo far beyond the studio, replayed, dissected, argued over by millions who weren't in the room but will feel like they were. And as the show moves forward, one thing is clear. The silence that followed Brad Pitt's words said more than any applause ever could. The air never quite recovers after that kind of silence. It lingers, invisible but heavy, settling into every corner of the studio as the conversation limps forward. The hosts shuffle papers, the cameras adjust angles, and somewhere off-screen a producer is whispering urgently into a headset. But none of it breaks the spell. Brad sits still, hands clasped now, thumbs rubbing together in a slow, unconscious rhythm. He can feel the eyes on him, not just Sunny's, but everyone's. The audience, the crew, millions beyond the walls who will soon replay this moment frame by frame. Sunny doesn't look away. She's composed, professional, but there's a flicker behind her eyes now, something sharper than curiosity. Brad, she says again, voice measured, no one is asking you to relive pain for entertainment. The question is about responsibility when influence is this vast. Influence. The word echoes. Brad almost smiles at the irony. He's spent years trying to outrun it, to shrink his presence, to disappear into work, into anonymity when possible. Yet here it is, dragged back into the light. Influence cuts both ways, he replies. So does judgment. Joy shifts in her seat, sensing the clash harden. This is clearly a sensitive topic, she interjects lightly, trying to soften the edge. Brad, maybe we pivot back to. Sunny lifts a hand, not breaking eye contact with him. Just one more thing. The audience exhales collectively, a nervous sound. Brad feels a familiar tightening in his stomach. He's been here before, in courtrooms, in private rooms where words were weapons and silence was strategy. He straightens again, bracing. You've talked about growth, Sunny continues. But for some people watching, growth without transparency feels like avoidance. Brad lets the words land. He nods slowly, acknowledging the weight without accepting the premise. Transparency, he says, doesn't mean public confession. It means honesty in action. Sunny's lips press together. How can the public see that action? Brad's eyes flick briefly to the camera, then back to her. They can't, he says plainly. And that's the point. A ripple moves through the audience, some approving murmurs, some disapproving. A man in the third row shakes his head. A woman nearby whispers something to her friend. The division is visible now, almost tangible. Sunny leans forward again, her tone sharpening just a degree. So you're asking people to trust you? I'm not asking for anything, Brad replies, a flash of heat breaking through his calm. I'm saying trust isn't owed, and neither is absolution. That does it. A low "oh" slips from somewhere in the crowd. Whoopi raises her eyebrows, surprised despite herself. Even Joy looks momentarily stunned. Brad feels his pulse racing, but there's a strange clarity with it. The careful filter he usually maintains has slipped, and in its place is something rawer, more honest than he's allowed himself on television in years. For a long time, he continues, voice steady but intense, I believed I had to explain myself to everyone, to justify every step, every failure. That nearly destroyed me. Sunny watches him closely now, her expression shifting, not softening, but recalibrating. And yet, she says quietly, the people hurt don't get to step away from the consequences. Brad nods. No, they don't. And I live with that. The room stills again. This time, the silence feels different, not confrontational, but heavy with something like reluctant understanding. Brad swallows, memories pressing at the edges of his thoughts. Late nights, regret, conversations that never made headlines, apologies that never reached the public. I don't need forgiveness from strangers, he says more softly. I needed to become someone who wouldn't repeat the same mistakes. Sunny tilts her head, studying him as if weighing whether to press further. The cameras zoom in, catching the faint lines around Brad's eyes, the tension in his jaw. This isn't the polished movie star anymore. This is a man exposed, whether he intended to be or not. Joy clears her throat again. I think what Brad's saying. Sunny glances at her, then back at Brad. One last question, she insists. If you could speak directly to those who feel silenced by your choice not to speak publicly, what would you say? Brad closes his eyes for half a second. When he opens them, they're bright, almost fierce. I'd say, he answers slowly, your pain matters, but it doesn't belong to an audience. The words hit like a final chord. Some audience members clap instinctively before catching themselves. Others remain still, arms crossed, unconvinced. The producer's voice crackles louder now in the host's earpieces, urging a transition, a commercial break, anything to diffuse the tension. Whoopi nods decisively. All right, she says, firm but kind. We're going to take a quick break. The applause sign flashes and clapping erupts, too loud, too sudden, trying to patch over the fracture. Brad forces a small smile as the cameras pull back. Sunny leans away, adjusting her notes, her face unreadable. As the screen fades to commercial, the studio buzzes with whispers. Audience members turn to each other, debating in hushed tones. Some look at Brad with newfound respect, others with skepticism. Phones are already out, thumbs flying as clips are typed into existence before the show has even cut to ads. Brad exhales deeply, shoulders sagging just a bit now that the red light is off. He stares at the floor, grounding himself. He knows this exchange won't stay contained. It will be clipped, captioned, stripped of nuance, and fed into the endless machine of outrage and praise. Across the table, Sunny glances at him, just briefly. There's no smile, no hostility either. Just a look that says this isn't finished. And as the countdown to return ticks silently in his mind, Brad realizes something with a cold certainty. The hardest part of this confrontation isn't what's been said on air. It's what's about to happen once the world decides whose silence, and whose words, it believes. When the cameras come back on, the applause feels thinner, more cautious, like hands clapping because they're told to, not because they want to. The red light blinks to life again, and with it, the unspoken agreement that whatever happens next will be watched, judged, and remembered. Brad lifts his head, resetting his posture, pulling the armor back into place. Across from him, Sunny straightens her notes with deliberate calm. Both of them know the break didn't end the confrontation. It only sharpened it. Whoopi offers a practiced smile. Welcome back, she says, voice warm but careful. Before the break, we were talking about accountability, growth, big, complicated ideas. Big, complicated ideas. Brad almost chuckles at the understatement. He nods politely, but his eyes flick to Sunny, who is already leaning forward again. There's a quiet resolve in her posture now. Not aggressive. Determined. Brad, she says, I want to clarify something. When people push for public acknowledgement, it's not always about spectacle. Sometimes it's about validation. Validation. The word lands differently this time. Brad doesn't answer immediately. He feels the audience watching his face, reading micro-expressions, waiting for cracks. I understand that, he says finally. Truly. But validation can't come at the cost of truth. Sunny arches an eyebrow. And who decides what truth looks like? Brad meets her gaze. The people who lived it. A few audience members clap softly before stopping themselves again. The tension refuses to dissipate. Joy shifts, uncomfortable now. This feels like one of those conversations where everyone's right and wrong at the same time, she offers, half joking, half pleading. But Sunny isn't done. Brad, do you think celebrities sometimes hide behind the idea of privacy to avoid hard conversations? There it is. The sharpest blade yet. Brad inhales slowly, chest rising, then falling. He's aware of his heartbeat, of the warmth under the studio lights, of the way his name is trending somewhere already. He chooses honesty over safety. Yes, he says. Some do. The audience murmurs. Sunny nods slightly, seizing the opening. So how do we know when privacy is genuine and when it's convenient? Brad's jaw tightens, but his voice stays level. You don't. And that uncertainty makes people uncomfortable. But discomfort doesn't justify intrusion. Sunny leans back, considering. Public figures benefit enormously from visibility, she counters. Isn't there a responsibility that comes with that? Brad's eyes harden just a touch. Responsibility to do what? He asks. Entertain? Confess? Perform remorse on cue. A hush falls over the studio. Even Whoopi looks taken aback now. I don't owe the public my pain, Brad continues, the words flowing faster, fueled by something deep and long-contained. I owe decency. I owe change. And I owe the people in my life the best version of me I can become. Sunny watches him, expression serious, not hostile. And if the public doesn't believe you've changed? Brad shrugs, a small, resigned motion. Then they won't believe me. The simplicity of it stuns the room. No spin. No plea. Just acceptance. I can't live my life chasing approval, he adds quietly. I tried. It nearly broke me. For the first time, Sunny's voice softens. Do you think this conversation helps or hurts? Brad considers that. He glances around the studio. The divided audience, the co-hosts balancing on a tightrope, the cameras capturing everything. Both, he says. And that's okay. There's a pause. A long one. The kind that feels unscripted, unplanned, real. Someone in the audience sniffles. Another person nods slowly. Whoopi clears her throat again, this time more firmly. I think what we're seeing, she says, is two perspectives that don't cancel each other out. Sunny turns to her, then back to Brad. Last thought from me, she says, signaling a boundary at last. Do you regret staying silent for so long? Brad's eyes flicker. Regret is a familiar companion. I regret the pain, he says. I don't regret taking the time to actually change. The applause that follows is hesitant, scattered, but genuine. It builds slowly, unevenly, like rain starting to fall after a long drought. Brad nods once in acknowledgement, though his face remains serious. The conversation shifts after that, to lighter topics, to his work, to safer ground. But the energy never fully resets. Every answer Brad gives is filtered through what came before. Every smile feels weighted. When the segment finally ends, the applause is louder, more decisive, as if the audience is releasing something they've been holding. Brad stands, shakes hands, exchanges polite words. Sunny offers a brief, professional smile. Not warm, not cold, complicated. As Brad walks off stage, the lights dimming behind him, he feels a strange mix of relief and dread. He knows the real confrontation is only beginning now, outside the studio, in the endless echo chamber of public opinion. Behind him, producers huddle, already discussing damage control and viral potential. In the audience, people are scrolling, posting, arguing in real time. Clips are being clipped, quotes isolated, context shaved away. Brad pauses just beyond the curtain, one hand resting against the wall. He closes his eyes, grounding himself again. He said what he needed to say. Maybe too much. Maybe not enough. Either way, the silence he broke on that stage has already transformed into noise. And there's no turning back. Somewhere, Sunny is still seated at the table, replaying the exchange in her mind, knowing this conversation will follow her too. Two people, two truths, colliding in front of millions. And as the studio lights go dark, one thing is certain. This wasn't just an interview. It was a line drawn in public, and the world is about to choose how it sees it. The fallout begins before Brad even reaches his car. By the time he steps into the hallway outside the studio, his phone is vibrating nonstop in his pocket, a low mechanical hum that feels almost alive. Publicists. Friends. Numbers he doesn't recognize. He doesn't look. Not yet. He already knows what's happening out there. The silence he shattered on that stage has turned into a roar. Inside the studio, the audience doesn't immediately leave. People linger in their seats, talking over one another in urgent whispers. Some are animated, voices raised, replaying Brad's words with admiration. Others shake their heads, arms crossed, convinced they just witnessed evasion dressed up as depth. A woman near the aisle wipes her eyes, insisting to anyone who'll listen that what he said felt real. A man 2 rows back scoffs, calling it Hollywood deflection. No one is neutral. Sunny Hostin remains seated at the table long after the cameras cut. Her notes lie untouched now. She exhales slowly, replaying every exchange, every inflection. She knows exactly how this will be framed, how some will call her brave, others ruthless. She's used to that. What unsettles her is something else. The look in Brad's eyes when he said he didn't know the public his pain. It wasn't rehearsed. And that makes it harder to dismiss. Whoopi breaks the quiet backstage. That was something, she says carefully. Sunny nods. It needed to be said. So did some of what he said, Whoopi replies. Sunny doesn't argue. She just sits with it. Within minutes, clips hit social media. Not full answers. Not context, just fragments. Brad saying, I don't owe the public my pain. Sunny asking, who decides what truth looks like? Captions appear instantly, aggressive and absolute. Hero. Coward. Finally someone said it. He dodged everything. The internet does what it always does. It chooses sides. Hashtags trend worldwide. Brad Pitt silent no more. Sunny Hostin exposes Hollywood. Armchair experts dissect body language. Commentators slow down footage, analyzing jaw tension, eye contact, micropauses. Trauma specialists weigh in. Legal analysts speculate. Fans fight in comment sections like it's personal, because to them, it is. Brad finally checks his phone. He scrolls once, twice, then locks the screen. He leans back in the car, staring out the window as the city slides past in a blur of concrete and light. For years, he tried to stay ahead of moments like this. Tried to manage perception, to soften edges, to say just enough and never too much. Today, something shifted. He didn't perform. He didn't hide. And now the world is deciding what that means. At home, he pours a glass of water he doesn't drink. The television is on, muted. His face fills the screen. Someone else is speaking over it, narrating his words as if they belong to a story already written. Across town, Sunny sits at her kitchen table, laptop open, reading the same headlines. Some praise her for holding him accountable. Others accuse her of ambushing a guest. She closes the laptop, rubs her temples. This is the cost of asking questions no one wants asked. She's paid it before. She'll pay it again. By nightfall, celebrities weigh in. Some subtly, some loudly. A few post vague quotes about growth and privacy. Others retweet clips with fire emojis or side-eye captions. Silence, too, becomes a statement. Every non-comment is interpreted as loyalty or fear. The next morning, the audience reaction footage airs everywhere. Gasps. Applause. That moment of silence, the one that swallowed the room, gets replayed endlessly. Commentators call it the loudest quiet in daytime television. Brad doesn't respond. No statement. No clarification. That, too, ignites debate. Sunny goes back on air days later and addresses it briefly. Calmly. My job, she says, is to ask questions. What people do with those questions is up to them. Some viewers applaud. Others don't. But they're still watching. And that's the truth beneath it all. This wasn't about winning or losing an argument. It was about collision. Two realities meeting under hot lights with nowhere to hide. It was about a man refusing to bleed on command, and a journalist refusing to let power go unquestioned. It was uncomfortable because it was honest. And honesty in public is rarely clean. Weeks later, the clips still circulate. The debate never fully dies. New viewers discover it, react as if it just happened. The moment becomes part of the cultural record, referenced, argued, remembered. Brad goes back to work. Sunny goes back to the table. Life moves forward, but something remains changed. Because once silence is broken that publicly, it can never be put back. And now it's your turn. Was Brad Pitt standing his ground, or avoiding accountability? Was Sunny Hostin holding power to the fire, or pushing too far? Whose side were you on when the room went silent? Tell us what you think in the comments. Your voice matters here. And if you want more explosive cinematic stories that pull you inside the moments everyone else just summarizes, subscribe to The Truth Narrator right now. Like this video, share it with someone who loves real drama, real tension, and real conversations, and stay with us. Because the truth isn't quiet. It's waiting to be told.